There was a quote we saw that got our attention today. It's a pretty good line turned in by Jerjon Johnny Newton, the rookie defensive tackle for the Commanders. This is via the 33rd team. They've been doing a bunch of breakdowns on Newton. And today they came out with a quote from him, Danny, that resonated with us because clearly this guy's confident and expects to make a lot of plays. He said, quote, "I'm going to baptize them," when asked about his message to teams that passed on him. He was supposed to go in the first round. He went in the second round, probably because of the fact that he was not healthy. But he says he's going to baptize the teams that chose not to draft him.
I like that from a personality standpoint. I want that. I want everyone to have a chip on their shoulder. If you don't have one, invent one. Whatever it takes to get you going, by all means, do that. If you're motivated, doing the right things, that's awesome. I don't know if you will or not. I really don't. This is one of those picks where I don't think Washington planned on taking him, right? They didn't think, hey, if this happens and this happens, this might be an option for us until a couple picks away. And they're going, this dude we had graded, for the sake of argument, at 19 overall is available to us at 36. We may have had a different plan, but we kind of have to do this here, right? Even if it wasn't the idea.
Well, if you watched Commander's Log, you already know how they felt about him and how it all played out. That's the beauty of the behind-the-scenes access that we are getting now, as you've seen Adam Peters have that conversation with Dan Quinn, and they call over the defensive coordinator, Joe Witt Jr., and they go, I just don't think we can pass him. He's got the Commanders tag, they called it, which is what it's like the sticker they put on the players that are, this is the epitome of what we want to be. I think their first 6 picks or something all had that sticker, which is not to say they were the best 6 players on their board, but they gave out, I think, 30 of them to 200 some players, and they ended up drafting almost their entire class of those guys. But to your point, I think you're right. I don't think it was the plan all along that at 36, we're going to circle Johnny Newton. They probably thought he's going to go somewhere in the 15 to 27 range. And then as you're getting close to being on the board at 36, the value is just too good to pass up.
Yeah, we've all been there in fantasy drafts, right? Where you're going, I had a plan. I was going to do running back first and then this receiver, but all of a sudden a guy is not getting picked. Then someone drafts a quarterback at the end of round 1, and then somebody, overdrafts the second tight end because they're worried about not getting one. And all of a sudden you're in the middle of round 2 going, I had a plan. This is too good. I can't pass on that. So I don't know, man. This is one of those, at the time, you're going, wow, what a genius move. This makes so much sense. This is awesome. I'm so excited because they got this guy with the first round grade. And I guess ultimately the proof will be in the pudding. This is one of those picks that I deem more as a luxury item when they maybe couldn't afford luxury. Like there's a side of the house missing and they got something that's going to help them in the future. How much he helps this year, I think, is a great question that I don't know the answer to. Right now, the opportunities they're going to have to invent some for him, right? You have to have 3 down defensive linemen, 3 tackles in various packages. He's going to play in a sub role, you would think, behind 2 starters. Now, maybe somebody gets hurt or otherwise, but I don't know. This is one of those, it's smart. I get it. It's long-term. You're layering talent in case you can now let one of your high-priced defensive tackles walk after this season or something. But this is one of those, again, if you're looking at it the way I am, and they certainly aren't, and they shouldn't listen to me, they should do their own thing. But you're looking at it and you're going, we have a huge glaring priority that doesn't fill that, right? That move. So this is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, you wanted something that's more immediate in how quickly it can pay dividends. Like the pick
regarding the Jaden Daniels. I mean, that I cared about that way more than I cared about.
But I'm just saying the pick miffed you because you're not all about the let's make this pick more for next year than this year.
If he was an offensive weapon, I'd have felt differently. But when you combine defensive tackle behind 2 Pro Bowl guys, and he's already had 2 foot surgeries.
Well, you only knew about the one when he's had the second since the draft.
Right. So, yeah. So the one, I'm going to go in, that's nice. I would have rather been something else.
Sure. I had no problem with the pick because of the quality of the player based on all of the experts who do this for a living, right? I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I had studied a whole lot of Johnny Newton. But when you watch him, he is a difference maker. He is an outstanding pass rushing defensive tackle. He is a problem. This is a guy that could be an absolute wrecking ball that blows a lot of plays up. And because of that, I am excited about him as a prospect. I also think it's a position where all 3 can play. You reference that. You said, oh, maybe you get them on the field. I think it's a lot easier than that. It's really simple. Do you want to play all three of them? Okay. They're on the field now. Now what? It's not like they have three defensive tackles and they're not pass rushers. Daron Payne, I would say, of the three is the least apt as a pass rusher. He did have 1 year where he had 11 sacks, which John Allen has never done and won't do in his career, and which Johnny Newton will probably never do. But I would make the case Daron Payne will never get
It may have
close
been the time he did
to doing that either. It was an amazing season. But I think from a consistency standpoint, I would take Allen over Payne a little bit as a pass rusher. And I think Newton could be, just in that regard, higher ceiling and more upside than both of them. So to have all three on the field is not going to be a problem. And it's a rotational position where in a good flow this season, maybe it's 60% of snaps at times for all three of them or something like that. Like you don't have to play Allen and Payne the 75, 80% that they do some
and you
games,
probably shouldn't.
especially as they get older. No, there's really no reason to do that. But the last reason I like the pick is, and you hinted at this, at least one of those two are going to be gone after this season. The pick tells you that. That is the plan. Allen has no guaranteed money, so it's probably him. Payne, you've paid. You would have to probably rework Allen's contract to keep him and then trade Payne, and someone would have to take on a bigger deal. So I just think it's easier that you would keep Payne with Johnny Newton, and then you'd move on from your team captain, John Allen. But it's kind of all there for you. I mean, the plan is pretty easy to see, and why not only they liked Newton right away, but why long term he fits in really, really well with what they want to do.
Indeed. I mean, this was the same logic, and against different players, different circumstances, but, similar logic to why they loved Fidarian Mathis and didn't retain Tim Settle on the cheap. And, we kind of did this before. Mathis got hurt, derailed his career. Who knows if he can play or not? I feel like I've never seen the guy, but he's been superseded and surpassed, and now it's a different regime, so he'll be passed over. I hope.
Let me say real quick, I know
Go
you're
ahead.
not comparing the two, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge this. But Arian Mathis, who was drafted at, was it 40? No, probably in the 50s, if I had to guess, late 40s, something like that.
I don't remember.
He was the 15th pick in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he was in the 50s. He was an overdraft when he was drafted, and everyone kind of acknowledged that. The book at that time, if you go back, was, wow, they really like this Fidarian Mathis guy.
Yeah, more than everyone else. And when they like him more than everyone else, they're usually, what's that, wrong every
A lot
time?
of people had him graded in the third round.
Yeah.
Fidarian Mathis and Johnny Newton have nothing in common other than that they play defensive tackle, in my opinion. When you watch Fidarian Mathis after the draft, you go, this guy probably will help him stuff the run a little bit at some point. When you watch Johnny Newton, it doesn't matter who on the defense you're trying to watch. You can't help but notice the big guy who constantly lives in the backfield. So other than that they play the same position, I don't know how comparable it is. But yeah, in the past, they have drafted defensive tackles thinking maybe they'd be starters. His career, as you said, has been completely derailed. He's been hurt. But he's also kind of a big, smart car, run stopper. I mean, Johnny Newton could be, I'm not saying he will be, but he could be an elite pass rusher on the inside.
Right.
That's
So, yeah, I mean, I again, different players, different regimes, different everything. But I'm a little bit worried because of the feet already that we've had a couple surgeries now. And sometimes it just, I don't know. It's hard to put my finger on exactly what I'm trying to say here. When you have this, it's almost like a video game or like an on paper sort of thing where you go, one player will move on, another player will ascend. This is not something we're used to doing here really well. Baltimore does this really well, right? Where they let a guy go and everyone's going, what the hell are they going to do? And then someone you haven't heard of steps in and plays well. You're trying to establish that here, right here in Washington, where you can let someone go because his replacement is already on the roster, has already worked his way up, kind of like a Jeremy Reeves type situation, but kind of throughout the roster, especially a big ticket item, a place like where John Allen is, earning $23 million or so against the cap. You'll save $17 million next year if you let him walk. That makes a lot of sense. You're just sort of hoping that it works out because we're not used to that happening here.